So, pigs. Apparently a lot of people don't think of them as cute. Well, today that changes because I'm gonna make my cutest doll ever, kicking off a mini-series where I make my farm animal OC friend group. Even though I printed her in pink, she's not quite the right shade yet, so I'm going to use this paint from Hobby Lobby to correct that. I have to admit, it was kind of weird using paint straight out of the bottle for the skin tone. I'm usually like a mad scientist in my room, mixing a whole bunch of paints to get the right color. The opacity of the paint was actually pretty good, but I still did many watered down layers just to make sure it was as smooth as possible. Now she's a much cuter piggy pink. To put some life into her skin, I'm adding layers of chalk pastels. I add a generous amount on her nose and her tongue. If you're curious, I didn't do a layer of Mr. Super Clear before I started. I waited until I couldn't build up the color anymore to finally do the first layer. A little risky in terms of erasing the mistakes, but I don't want to use any more Mr. Super Clear than I have to. At first, I thought I was going to paint in her tongue, but I think this makes it look a lot more natural and a little semi-realistic. I add some chalk on the inside of her ears too, even though it's kind of hard to see on camera. Using a white pencil, I add some satisfying cartoony highlights all over her face. Because I'm using a very specific shade of pink for her skin tone, I had a little bit of a struggle finding paints and pencils in my stash that were dark enough for her eyeliner. But that's when my mad scientist ways came back into play, and I just sat there mixing a whole buttload of paint until I got the right color. You guys don't know this, but pink is my absolute favorite color. But unfortunately, I have a very mixed relationship with it when it comes to my art. Apparently, I love pink so much that I can't help but obsess over even the tiniest hue or saturation difference from what I have in my mind. It gets so bad sometimes that I actually give myself headaches. Fortunately for this doll, I forced myself not to go too crazy over the shades of pink, which, believe it or not, actually made this doll fun to work on and not stressful. Who knew? I go back and forth between adding highlights with the white pencil and going heavy with more red chalk pastels. Going back and forth like that does great with adding depth and keeps things from looking flat, which if you've been here before, you know that that's always something I'm trying to avoid. Off camera, I add a few stitches on her face to give her that teddy bear cuddly kind of vibe. The goal, in case you forgot, is to make her as cute as possible. To break up a bit of that pink, and just like in the sketch, I'm giving her blonde eyebrows. And now at this point, I finally do 2 generous final layers of MSC. Going straight back to the wonderful land of pink, I grab white false lashes and paint it to match the eyeliner. I don't want her face to be too harsh, which is why I'm doing pretty light makeup and sticking to a very pink color palette. When it's good and dry, I use a bit of glue and a silicone sculpting tool to get it onto the face. To finish off the face itself, I use a varnish to gloss over the mouth, her nose, and the waterline. And yes, of course I broke out my pink paintbrushes for this. The holes in her nose and her ears are the spots for her piercings, by the way. For her piercings, I thought I was going to use these jump rings, but I later switched to using braid loops. Taking a slight break from the face, I'm going to blush her body so it matches the head. By the way, if you're interested in learning how to make your own doll, then check out my recent series where I show you exactly what you need to know, from working in a digital sculpting program to actually 3D printing the doll. You could honestly be holding your dream doll sooner than you think, so don't miss it. I've also made a little list in the description of affiliate links to some of my favorite supplies. So if you choose to buy anything, you'll not only get the products that I've been using and relying on for years now, but you'll also be helping out the channel. So thanks in advance if you decide to check it out. Now I can circle back to the head and finish the eyes. Like with all of my dolls recently, I 3D print the bases and paint them white. Then I take a tiny little brush and fill in the base color. Not too light and not too dark. With a lighter color, I paint along the bottom of the iris and start a very small blend between the shades. Then I do the same thing for the darker color, only I paint that on the top of the iris. I ran out of my gouache paint in this color, so I'm mostly using metallic acrylic paint this time. The last step is filling in the pupil with a dotting tool and the darkest shade of paint. With some drops of resin, I fill in the iris and gloss the eyes. The eyes actually fit pretty well in the head by themselves this time, so I didn't need to use glue. This also means I have the extra bonus of being able to switch them out later if I wanted to. For her clothes, I'll actually be making the fabric. And when I say making the fabric, I mean cutting strips of corduroy and then stitching them back together again so I get cute stripes. This is my general sketch I made for her clothes. It's mostly accurate, but I do change the top and add an angle to the bottom of her pant legs. You can probably imagine and already tell that this stuff is super awkward to cut because it got so thick in sections, which is why I didn't film the pants. But for the top, I'm doing yet another famous tube top. And for this, I'm literally just cutting a strip. Right here, you can actually see me struggling to cut this. When I finally got the piece loose, I fold over and pin the top and the bottom so I can sew and finish off the edges. Then I complete the top by adding on some clear snap closures from my stash. And there we go, a nice, simple, but adorable tube top. Now to add the fun part, the decorations. The first thing I do is sew on some chains onto her pants. And then bringing in the glue, I add some really small gold bow nail charms onto the front to look like buttons. I do the same thing to the top. Using the same chain as before and a few more nail charms, I make her a choker and a necklace. Then the last major part of her outfit is her sleeves, which I make out of one of my mom's old cream shirts. Her hands are cute, but they are a little large, and they're not going to allow me to slide things on and off easily, so I'm just stitching these sleeves directly onto her arms. I sketched out her hair and face while I was in class one day, and I knew for sure I really wanted to give her an undercut. So, to do this, I'm actually going to cut up some unraveled yarn into tiny little pieces to make flocking. Fake flocking. This was a mess, but I guess it was better than using pre-made flocking because I know for sure it won't clash with her curly hair, which I'm also using the yarn for. I haven't done flocking in a couple years now that I'm thinking about it, and I struggled for some reason getting this stuff to stick. Turns out the yarn just wanted to be picky and needed to be cut into even smaller pieces and then glued onto the wig cap. Oh, and patience. Patience helped too. Once it's finally stuck on, I cut down as much of the flocking as possible so it looks like her hair has been cut short and not like fluffy fur. Here I kind of jump ahead a little bit, but don't worry, I'm going to show you exactly what I did because now I need to make her bangs. I really liked the curl of the untwisted yarn, so I left it as it was, and I'm literally just gluing it on like I would normal brushed out hair. Then I could put her hair in a low ponytail and slap the wig onto her head. Okay, so now the actual last thing I need to do for her is the gold details. I'm sorry, but she deserves gold hooves. So, I'm breaking out my gold foil leaf and adhesive. This part, for me, will never be boring to watch. It's a little annoying to actually do, but watching it will always be relaxing. And with the last swipe of my brush and a lot of vacuuming, she's done. Ironically, the next video will be all about my least favorite color, the complete opposite of pink. I think with the timing of this video post, it might be obvious, but let me know what you're guessing in the comments anyway. And like always, thanks for watching, stay sweet, and I'll see you in the next video.